Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy. Thanks for tuning in today. If you saw last week's episode, which if you haven't, I'll link it down in the description, you know that the engine in Dad's truck was all apart on my workbench and broken. By the end of this episode, I promised to put it back together and get it running again. So find out how I did. Let's get to the action right now. Here is an update. I've gone through, I've cleaned the block, and you can also see that I've installed these studs here on some of these mains, and I'll show you why in a moment. In addition to cleaning the block, I've cleaned the cylinder heads, all the gasket mating surfaces and all that. And what you might notice here around the spark plug hole is I've done some filing, and I've done this on all of these. And the reason I did that is because there were some sharp edges where the threads came up through for the spark plug, and they were sticking up almost like a knife edge. And this is something that I feel could cause detonation, in that the sharp metal bits that are sticking out like that can get superheated, like a red hot poker, let's say. And because it's hot like that, it could ignite the air fuel mixture before the spark plug does, thus causing detonation. So I took the time in all of these spark plug holes to smooth everything out so there's no sharp edges or bits of metal like that sticking up anymore. I also cleaned all the mating surfaces on the intake manifold. I've got my new pistons, which are from Ross, and you can see that they're dished, and this adds plus 15 cc to the combustion chamber, bringing my relative compression in somewhere around 9.87 to 1. So the compression ratio being too high for pump gas is no longer an issue, because that's well within the safe range. This also opens things up if I wanted to, say, add a supercharger to this engine, or possibly add nitrous at some point. So having this extra volume, in a way, is kind of giving me an opportunity, or at least an opportunity that I'm taking. I just got the piston rings today. I was hoping to get a different set. Those were on back order. I didn't get them, so I'm going to try these out. But what those studs were for, this is a windage tray that I spent some time fitting onto here, and this back fastener fastens on where the oil pump goes. But this will help keep, well, some of the rotation of the crankshaft from moving the oil around too much inside the oil pan. So that's something you see in a lot of engines, and it frees up a little bit of horsepower and everything else. But I'm about to embark on gapping all the rings, which is going to take me a bit of time. One thing I'll mention, you probably notice the scale here. This is a postal scale. It's not a piston scale, so it's not super accurate or whatever. But I'm concerned about upsetting the balance of the engine. I had the engine balanced with the crankshaft and everything, and there's a video out that I did on this where you can see it's a long, involved process. My theory is if the piston weights are all the same or similar, everything that I'm adding to this connecting rod, then I should be okay. I've got my fingers crossed. I'm hoping to be within a couple of grams, within tolerance or whatever. But all of these came out to about 640 grams, with the exception of two. One was like fighting between 640 and 630, but this one definitely came out as 630. So this is my light piston. It really sucks because you can't really add so much to a light piston. It's easy to take away from a heavy one, but since the majority rules here, I've got one light piston, and that's just how it's going to be. So I measured all those. I measured the rings. The rings all measure out exactly the same. In fact, they all came out, at least the oil control rings. I haven't done the compression rings yet, but they all come out to about that 20. I'm going to file the rings, and maybe there's a heavy set of rings or something. Actually, you got to match the rings up to the bore, so there's no way around that. But this is where I've gotten to, and I'm hoping that all the stuff that I'm doing here is going to pay off in the end, and I will have a smooth running engine once again. But as I said, I'm about to embark on gapping these rings, which is, well, it's going to take a minute, quite frankly. Well, and one more thing I'll mention on the windage tray. I have already checked the clearance between the windage tray and the oil pan. We're good. One more thing on piston rings. I am going to gap them a little bit differently. I set them up to about 19 last time, both top and bottom. This time I'm going to do the top at 20 and the bottom ring at 21, 22-ish. The literature I'm reading is for performance applications, having a wider ring gap on the secondary ring is a good thing. Specifics on that I'm not going to get into here, but I'll link something to lead you to that. But anyway, that's what I'm going for now, just in case I decide to add a supercharger or nitrous at some point. Once I got the rings sorted, it took 2 sets, by the way, I reassembled the engine and installed it in the truck. Well, viewers, I have rebuilt the engine and put it in, hooked everything up. That's important. The front end isn't important. The same thing happened to me last time. There was a coolant leak right here in particular, especially on this side. And I tightened the snot out of those bolts this time, and I put RTV around the gasket. But when I set the intake manifold down on top of the engine, I noticed that there was a pretty sizable gap between the intake manifold and the cylinder heads, and I'm pretty sure that's the deal. I have a note here about this coolant leak on the engine, which is gone, by the way. I haven't experienced any issues since I tightened everything down over here. But if you may recall, the machinist decked the block to exactly 9 inches, and I think he said he took off about 20 thousandths of an inch in order to achieve that. Something you might be mindful of, and there's some debate online whether or not this should be done or not, but when you have the block decked or you have the heads machined in order to get a better compression ratio, you may also have to mill the intake by, I believe, half the amount that you use to deck the block. So in other words, if there was 20 thousandths taken off of the block, then perhaps 10 thousandths be milled off of the intake manifold. This was not done in my case. Now, like I said, there's debate online whether or not this needs to be done. Thankfully, this is aluminum and it's stretched into place and I don't have any leaks here, but I'm mentioning this now in case you are doing something like that, that this is something you should watch out for, because in addition to coolant leaks, this could also cause vacuum leaks at the intake runners. If I have to, I'll go back in and put a thicker gasket in, like find the best stinking gasket I can find. But for now, I'm full of coolant, full of oil. Oil is primed, and I'm about to start the engine. Well, I hope the engine's about to start, and I hope it's about to run, and I hope it'll run okay. The distributor's a little bit loose, so I can set the timing. I've got the setup and everything for that ready to go also. First thing I'm gonna do is I have the fuel pump fuse removed, and I'm just gonna crank it over and look to see if I have oil pressure. I did prime it, like I said, but I wasn't able to see if I had oil pressure, but I could feel it. I could feel resistance in the drill when it was turning. So I'm pretty sure it went up through there. Plus I could see, evidence that the oil was circulating. Anyway, check the oil pressure, crank it over for a minute. If I do have oil pressure, I'll put the fuel pump fuse back in, and it's go time. And hopefully that coolant leak is not a continuing issue. Really hope so. But that's the only leak that I've seen so far. Now I'm gonna crank it over to see if I have oil pressure. Okay, no fuel pump is running, which is good. Yep, there's oil pressure there. Now I'm gonna install the fuel pump fuse, and I'm just gonna turn the ignition to the on position, but I'm not going to turn it over. I just wanna check to see if there's any leaks in the fuel system. Sounds like fuel's circulating. I'm gonna do it one more time to make sure I got pressure. I don't see any leaks anywhere. All right, now I wanna connect to the computer via my tablet. My data is not backed up. Ask me if I care. Okay, not connected to the engine. Ignition is on, so it should connect. Unless I have to start this whole process over, which would suck. All right, I need to get this set up. It's gonna take me a second, so give me a minute. Can't get it to pair, and I'm not gonna start this up without having the ECU paired so I can look at things, so I can adjust timing, so I can do all these other things. It's late, it's like 8:15. I don't feel like calling the tech line and dealing with all that right now. Hopefully the sealer gets a chance to set up. That'd be cool. Anyway, such is hot rodding. Well, followers, I've come back. It is the next day. I've got myself some rest and some food, both helpful things when you're at your wit's end. Good idea to take a break. Anyway, back this morning. It's cold, obviously. I haven't had the heat on for very long, but I was able, PCM to pair. See a little green check mark by the engine there? So, we're hooked in, and I've primed the system and reprimed the system, meaning I cranked it over and made sure it had oil pressure. It does. So I'm going to start it up. Now, when I do start it up, I'm going to be running around checking things, looking underneath, all that kind of stuff to see if there's any leaks or anything I need to look out for. Once I'm past that, then we'll come back. Wish me luck. Eric, what was the issue with the Edelbrock ProFlow 4 system? I needed to input the pin in order to get the Bluetooth to pair again. Job one will be to reinstall the fuel pump fuse, but first I'm going to turn the ignition off because it's on at the moment. Okay, first I'm going to turn the key and let the fuel system prime, and then I'll start it, and like I said, I may be doing a little bit of running around. Hopefully we don't have like massive coolant leaks or anything like that to deal with. It's a big moment. It's been like a couple of weeks and a lot of work. And you're here for it. Nice! No leaks. Excellent oil pressure. Sounds strong. I'm going to back it outside for the rest of the warm-up. Sounds good. A couple of small exhaust leaks. I used gaskets instead of RTV this time because I trued up the manifold. Just gonna let it warm up the temperature. Sounds a little louder on this side. Maybe not. I think I need to raise fuel pressure a little bit. But otherwise, it's live. All right, base timing is set, basic fuel pressure is set, it seems to be running good and smooth, and there are no leaks underneath. A few exhaust leaks, but I can deal with those in a bit. I'm gonna bring it in, put it back together, and then take it out and break in the rings. I'll GoPro so you can be there with me. One more thing that I don't know if I've mentioned, but I rewired the cooling fans with diodes, so now they're working properly. I've got one cooling fan that comes on when it's supposed to, and then the other cooling fan comes on when it gets hotter. So now it's being controlled like I'd intended. The longer this thing runs, the smoother it gets, the more I like it. But again, you have to deal with some exhaust leaks and junk like that. But we'll bring it in, get some stuff sorted, take it out for a drive. Now I'm going to back the timing way off and probably only put it at like total timing of like 18 or 20 degrees, which isn't a whole lot. I think that's safe, but this will allow me to, well, do some full throttle pulls and stuff to break the rings in, which is what I intend to do. Hopefully I don't blow it up this time. Lessons learned, and well, we'll see if I'm right. And then once I get the rings broke in, I'll bump the timing back up to like say 28 or 30 degrees total timing. It starts out at 12 degrees base timing, by the way, and then you can adjust it with a computer anywhere you want. Well, before I do that, I don't know if you remember I mentioned the adjustable proportioning valve that I now have. I'm going to go out in the dirt parking lot out front and hit the brakes a few times and see if I can get that adjusted where I want it before I take it out. This way I'm sure to have brakes. Brakes are good for stopping.
We can. It's getting to be trafficy time of day. I'm gonna wait till I get past this road because, well, people tend to pull out for no particular reason down here. I'd rather not have that happen, but I have the brakes adjusted. Still could use some help. It still doesn't feel like they're really doing their job. Not sure what the deal is with that. But I've got timing backed off to about 20 degrees total timing. We'll see if that does the trick. Happier. Like I said, doesn't ping now. Well, okay then. Ha 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 ha! That's more like it. Yeah, she ain't picking now. She goes. And I haven't even got the timing all dialed in yet. Smoother now. I like that. I like that a lot. Alright. Nice! I got my truck. I got my truck. Yes. Sweet. Love it. Absolutely love it. So happy to have my truck. Yes. No more of that blowing oil stuff, I bet you. And we're gonna check when I get back just to make sure that dipstick's still inside the tube because I didn't lock it down this time. This is me smiling from ear to ear. Oil pressure's still good. Temp's good. Temp is cold actually. Looks like it's only about 170. It is a cold day. But I mean, I would think after a run like that, it would be like, oh, such a relief. It feels good. I mean, it always felt like it was hurt from the first time I took it out. But this time, nope, not this time. This time it's like, let's go, let's go, let's go, my truck, let's go. Oh. Alright, I gotta find a place up here to pull over. Look under the hood, make sure everything's still there. Well, dipstick popped out a little bit, but there isn't any oil behind it. That's a good sign. I'm going to take it up to 28 degrees total timing. Just leave it there for the moment.
feels like, well, according to this gauge, it's 12 and a half. And this says 13. So there's always been a discrepancy between what the gauges on my dash say and what this says. They've been completely happy about that. I'm not exactly sure what the deal is. Anyway. Let's shift it ourselves. Oh, this is so much better. This is a different truck, let me tell you. Ooh, my parking brake works really good. Truck is good. Truck is happy. I'm happy with the truck. We're both happy. Got my truck back! Yes! Of course, I never had the truck. You never had your truck. I feel evil inside, but it's a good evil. Well, we'll get it back to the shop, check for leaks, start screwing around with some stuff, figure this out. Words fail me as to how exactly I'm feeling right now. Elation might come close, but man, that was a long, strange trip, you know, to go through all that and the power tour and get it all together. And the only thing I can attribute this issue to is the compression was too high for pump gas. Because now the compression is down, I'm able to drive it, I'm able to flog it, even at 28 degrees of total timing, which, you know, probably be a good idea at some point to get this thing tuned so I can get every ounce of horsepower out of it that I can. But here I am with a running and driving truck, which doesn't blow oil everywhere. I mean, just opening up the hood right now and not seeing oil everywhere was, I've never experienced that since I built the truck. So I'm pretty happy that we're in this place. Real quick before I close this one out, I got a couple of shout outs, and the first one is going to be to Eldebrock Tech Support. Now, you might remember in the initial series when I started the truck up for the very first time, I was on the phone with them and they were instrumental in helping me get that taken care of. This is the ignition rotor that was in the truck, and while I was removing the engine, I accidentally broke this. My sleeve got caught on it and it all went into pieces like this. I was having trouble finding one. I called up Eldebrock Tech Support and they're like, you know what, Eric, we're just going to send you one. And I was like, thanks, guys. Well, in addition to Eldebrock, I'd like to give a shout out to Summit Racing, who has been instrumental in this entire truck build. So I'll put a link in the description of them so you can go check out their stuff. Anyway, back to the closing of the video. I hope the information in this video was useful to you, if not entertaining, and that you might be feeling the joy that I'm feeling. That would be awesome. Automotive questions, EricTheCarGuy.com. And be sure to how could you not like this video? Comment, subscribe, be safe, have fun, stay dirty. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.